And welcome, Hoosier Nation, to our 84th episode of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of IndianaHQ. Our mission and goal is simple. We want to bring in-depth analysis and coverage for Indiana University sports to as many fans as possible across a multitude of modern platforms. We are recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Tuesday evening, April 16th, 2019, where I am your host, Nithin Krishnan. You can catch our live broadcast Tuesday evenings at 8:30 on our YouTube page or our website. If you missed the live broadcast, you can subscribe to our show for free on whatever platform you listen to podcasts so you can listen on your own time. Check out Twitter and Facebook at the Hoosier Sound at IndianaHQ. Subscribe and turn the bell on. All of the information is on our website, IndianaHQ.com. All right, Hoosier Nation, it's time for some sports talk. How about the breaking news we just got with Joey Brunk? On the docket for tonight, though, the Hoosier basketball team now has a new face. Brunk committed earlier today, so we're going to break down his commitment and where other recruits might be headed. Then we'll get into the 2019 spring football Cream and Crimson game, which took place over the weekend. We're going to cover the game and maybe get into the NFL draft. We'll see where this goes. But first, let me introduce who is helping us tonight on the podcast covering football and basketball. Noah and Matt, who are normally here, aren't here this evening because of other commitments. But we brought in our very own IndianaHQ football guru, Blake Betzner. Blake covers a lot of Indiana sports, but focuses a lot on football for us, and he does an incredible job. I'm really excited about this. Go check out his work on our website at IndianaHQ.com because the articles he puts out are very insightful. Blake, how are you doing on this exciting and fantastic evening on your first Hoosier Sound podcast appearance?
Yeah, I'm just excited to be here, and I think I'm good luck, so maybe I should be on more with the recent commitment of Joey Brunk. So, but yeah, it's a good day. Good day for Hoosier Nation, and getting somebody like that's going to be a good thing. So yeah, I'm really excited about football coming up. So yeah, excited to talk about Hoosier sports.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, right? It's like the off season for basketball. It's the off season for football. Yet it seems like we're dealing with a bunch of stuff tonight. Isn't it crazy?
Yeah, and that's what coaches or everybody else say. Everything happens in the off season. You get better in the off season, so you can kind of see we're doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we had like a breaking news sound effect or something for this Joey Brunk news. So for those of you who for those of you who are maybe listening on Wednesday or Thursday, we record this podcast on Tuesday nights live. So a few hours ago, earlier this afternoon, the news came down through credible source Joey Brunk himself on Twitter, where he said he's committing to IU basketball to play for the next 2 years. Now, it's interesting with Brunk. So he has immediate eligibility, which means he can play for the Hoosiers starting this fall, and he's got 2 years left. A lot of these graduate transfers only have just one season to play. Evan Fitzner is a good example of that. But Brunk comes in from Butler, pretty good basketball program in the state of Indiana, and he's got 2 years left on his deal. There was a hardship waiver involved, which is kind of a weird exception there. But, without getting too deep into the details, Brunk can now play for IU the next 2 years. Blake, that's got to be exciting, right? We've got the Clifton Moore transfer. We saw Jake Forrester leave the program. It seems like an ideal fit for Brunk, who will slide right into that center spot.
Yeah, and, we needed somebody. We needed somebody that could come in right away and play. Freshmen, no matter how good, they come out, of high school, some, Big Ten basketball is a little different world. So to get somebody like Joey to come in, be able to play, day one, and, he might not start, but he can, get a lot of minutes and do a lot of great things. Whenever we started talking about him, the guy that Max Benefeld really came back to my mind of, a good guy that came in right away and really, we were Big Ten champions that year because of, my opinion, Max Benefeld. So hopefully he can do the same kind of thing and bring that kind of energy. And I mean, I don't think he's going to score 25 points a game for us like Juwan Morgan, but I think he's got a lot of capabilities of just being a good role player. Are you what do you think he'll bring? Do you think he'll be a starter, or what do you think? Where do you think he fits in?
That's a good question. It's funny. So Brunk last year averaged 7.6 points per game for Butler, 3.6 rebounds per game. But those numbers came in just about 18 minutes per game. So he wasn't a 35, 40-minute per game guy. But you can see those numbers are put up in a competitive conference in the Big East. Brunk a lot of times was phased out because of certain matchups. For example, if you think about Marquette, how they played last year, Brunk really didn't take the floor too much against Marquette because they had a lot of smaller guys, a lot of jump shooters. It's very different than the style you see a lot of times in the Big Ten, where teams like Michigan State and Purdue and, you name it, Iowa, they've got big guys inside, where a player like Brunk will absolutely be a lot of help. I don't know if he'll start, right? Obviously, IU's bringing in Trace Jackson Davis, the 5-star McDonald's All-American. He plays a very similar position. But what's exciting is now you're starting to see some depth evolve. This is something that IU thought they had all last season, but because of injuries and because maybe some guys falling below expectations, that depth that we thought was there didn't really come to fruition. Now with Brunk, who's got Big East basketball experience, combined with Jackson Davis, freshman, but extremely talented, and then Deron Davis, the senior center who's going to hold down the post, now you're starting to see a situation where if Davis gets into foul trouble or if Jackson Davis maybe has a rough night, Brunk can come in. And again, the expectation isn't for him to score 25 a game, but he can come in, grab a few rebounds, score a few baskets inside, and really help keep things moving.
Yeah, my most exciting part about him is I think he's an Archie Miller guy, and I think he'll love IU basketball. I think the fans will love him. I think he'll give us something that, hit and miss a couple of years, fiery, getting after things. He'll just bring a different mentality back to IU basketball.
Yeah, and I know, Blake, this is your first time on the show, so I know you're from the state of Indiana.
Yep.
And look, bottom line, right? It doesn't hurt to bring in a guy from the state who played at Southport High School in Indianapolis to come in and play for a school that seemingly, at least just based on his Twitter posts, he wants to play for IU. That's a good thing.
Yep.
And, and I remember one comment. I forgot if it was Colin Hartman or Nick Zeisloft during their senior night speech. They said they play for Indiana, not at Indiana. And I think that's something that Joey Brunk will understand. We'll see how things play out. Just to give a little bit more background on Brunk, maybe because, for people who may not have watched the Big East a lot or curious to see what this guy brings in, Brunk was a 4-star high school recruit in the class of 2016. So we're not talking about some needle in the haystack kind of player. Brunk was recruited by a lot of high major Big Ten programs. He received offers from Michigan State, Purdue, Iowa, Illinois. It's almost like IU's adding a 4-star recruit in the process. Now, we have more details on Brunk on our IndianaHQ website, IndianaHQ.com. We've got a couple of really nice articles, really digging deep into Brunk's situation, the ups and downs during his time at Butler, what he brings to IU on the basketball court. But, with Brunk coming in as a 4-star recruit, this is, even though the numbers maybe don't stand out as far as how he played at Butler, this is a guy who absolutely has the capability, and maybe a change of scenery will help him. He's got the capability to be a starter in this conference. Blake, it's pretty intriguing, isn't it, to see, this is a guy that Tom Izzo offered a scholarship to, Matt Painter. Do you think maybe by the end of the season or maybe by the end of the following season, his senior year, he does end up being one of the better players on the team? Or do you think he'll be kind of a complimentary piece?
That's a great question. I don't know. I think that he has the potential to do a lot of things. With Fitzner coming in, I thought he was going to be a lot better player than he was. So development wise, I didn't see him. We only saw a year of him, but I think Joey's obviously a completely different player than him. But I think he has a chance to be a really solid player for us for 2 years, and just kind of, he's not the savior of the program, but he's a culture changer. And I think that's what Archie needs right now, is guys that come in, work hard, and he might do more for the program, just how he turns it around in 2 years, or helps turn this around in 2 years, that we talk about him and 15 years saying, when we started getting all those guys to change the culture. Because I don't know how many times, I heard on, IU media outlets, the guys just aren't playing hard last night. It looked like they didn't even care. And, I think that culture is changing, and I think there's a reason that you're getting the players you're getting. Or he's recruiting guys he's recruiting.
Yeah, I completely agree. By the way, his season high last year was 20 points in a game against Seton Hall on the road. So you can see what the kind of ceiling is like. Seton Hall was an NCAA tournament team last year. And I totally agree with you. Whether Brunk comes in and averages 2 points a game next year or 20, at the end of the day, you saw this with Purdue and Virginia and with Texas Tech and Gonzaga and Michigan State. Those were all programs where no matter who was on the floor, whether it's a starter or a walk-on, they played their hearts out, and if Brunk can bring that into the program, I think that's going to be a great sign.
Yep. Well, I know we're taking over for Noah and Matt today, but here's a question for you that's kind of getting off. I know we're off the question marks, but a lot of my friends and I always had this conversation. Is IU better with 3 or 4-star recruits that stay around 4 years? Or are you a 5-star guy? What is your opinion? It's all over the board. I'm not sure where I'm at, but I know we haven't won like we should have or could have the last, 12 years, that we have enough talent coming from the state of Indiana that, what do you think about 5 stars compared to a 3-star or 4-star that's going to be here for 4 years?
Yeah, no. So that's that's kind of the $1 million question with IU basketball right now. And I'm curious what the listeners have to say about this. So if you're watching us on YouTube, drop your thoughts into the live chat. If you're listening to this later on in the week, hit us up on Twitter or email or whatever, because I'm curious to hear what IU fans have to think about this. Me personally, they're clearly, based on what we saw in last year's NCAA tournament, there is a lot of benefit to having guys around for that 3 or 4 years, and I think, when you have that continuity and that consistency with the coaching staff, with the players surrounding you, if you have those guys for 3 or 4 years, that's so important. And you look at this coming season for IU's got a lot more of those players finally coming into the season. You've got Devontae Green, you've got Al Durham, and you've got Justin Smith next year. That's exciting. Race Thompson as well, even though he'll be a sophomore, he'll be his 3rd year in the program. Now, let's not overthink it, right? The 5-star kids have a ton of talent, but the problem comes down to those guys that are kind of one and dones. And even though Tom Crean's no longer the coach at IU, I remember one thing he said in a speech he gave, of all places. He said, if you're going to come and be a one-year player, that's fine. Obviously, the NBA is the ultimate goal for a lot of those guys. Yeah. He said, though, you've got to, I think maybe I'm misquoting him, but he says something like, you've got to drop your bags off. You got to open up your bags or something like that. In other words, you've got to come in, you've got to commit, you've got to go hard in practice, go hard during the games, whether you're here for 1 year or for 4 or 5 years. So I think that's the most important thing, whether it's a 5-star guy or a walk-on. Come in to IU or whatever program you play at, but obviously we're talking about IU here. Come into Bloomington, unpack your bags, commit to the team, and look, if at the end of the year you have to transfer for whatever reason, or if you feel like you've got to throw your hat into the ring for NBA considerations, that's a different story. But as far as, which one's better, I don't know which one's better. At the end of the day, I think the most important thing is getting people to commit to play for IU. Is that where your mindset is, or do you think, give us the 4-year guys?
I don't know. I've went back and forth a lot because, when you see these Romeo Langfords and you see these 4 big 5-star guys and you see Michigan State pulling them out, or Ohio State pulling, what guy that went and played the NBA, didn't play very long. Greg, I can't remember, Conley, and they're both the same team. But I was frustrated. Ohio State got both those guys. You're thinking, why is Indiana not getting it? So either way, Indiana fans are going to be mad. You know what I mean? It's just how we are. why aren't we getting the 5-star guys? Why would we not care about 5-star and get 3-star? So I think either way, it's just a fun, topic. But I just think we got to figure out a way, to get people want to be here and change the culture.
Perfectly.
Yeah. And I think Archie Miller's going to do that.
Yeah. Hey, look, every program develops at a different speed. I mean, that's just the way it is. Some guys hit it from the ground running. Other guys, it takes a few years. At the end of the day, Archie Miller's job is to just find the right mix of guys, because let's face it, Blake, this year coming up is extremely important for IU's program.
Yep. Oh, definitely.
All right. So that's, Joey Brunk. And look, this is a one guy on a team of 13. So, we'll see how things play out in the years to come. And the good news is Brunk will be in Crimson and Cream for the next 2 seasons.
Yep.
Now, Blake, I know it's your first time, but one segment we have on our show every week is called Who Won the Week? And this is something we usually like to talk about unrelated to basketball or football, because, there are a lot of, I think there are 24 sports in IU's athletic department, and there's always something interesting to talk about and to give special recognition to. To me, the team that won the week is IU's baseball team. Now, they've won 7 games in a row. And after a bit of a bumpy start against tough teams like Memphis and Tennessee, the Hoosiers have really straightened things out. They're 24-12 this season. They're 7-2 in conference play. And like I mentioned earlier, they've won 7 in a row. They're coming off a weekend sweep of Evansville at Bart Kaufman Field in Bloomington. A couple guys to really look out for, Matt Lloyd and Grant Richardson. They are bashing the heck out of the baseball right now. And if you live in the Bloomington area, you should definitely check them out. I'm not quite ready to say they're Kyle Schwarber and Sam Travis from a few years ago, but you're talking about a couple of guys who can knock the ball out of the park. IU leads the conference in home runs, and they're looking like they're going to be in the college baseball tournament. The finals called the College World Series, but it looks like they're going to make the NCAA baseball tournament. They've got a big home series coming up against Minnesota in a couple of weekends. Their RPI right now, according to D1Baseball.com, which kind of tracks all these things at an in-depth level, is in the top 30, and there are 64 teams that make the college baseball tournament. So things are heading in the right direction for first-year coach Jeff Mercer. The baseball team right now is taking on Ball State, and they're handing it to the Cardinals. So it's things are looking good for the baseball team, and I can't wait to see what they've got in store. But now it's time to switch gears. Blake, your alley is the IU football program. There's been a lot going on in the last couple of weeks. Spring practice is wrapped up, and they culminated with the annual spring football game, also known as the Cream and Crimson game. Blake, why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about what the game is about and give us some background information on how it works?
Sure. Being around practice for the last couple of weeks, you got to see a lot of stuff. And to me, the spring game is like NFL preseason football about week 3 or 4. Offensively, they hold a lot of people out. They just do a lot of different things. So the spring games, you've come to it, I took my wife down to it, took my daughter, went to the little kids camp beforehand. It was awesome. Food, it was a good, festive time, but what you get out of it, not much. And it's a little different this year than normal years. They usually have a Cream and Crimson team that's picked. They, do like a draft. They do a lot of cool things. Jack Tuttle had some sickness dealing with, so they're down to really one quarterback. So they decided to go offense, defense, really kind of funky scoring system. You couldn't keep, I had no idea how to score. I mean, I still had the sheet in front of me and I still couldn't figure it out real well. So the Cream team did one, which is the offense, but I wouldn't say the offense won the day. So leading up to it, there's just been a lot of really good things to see in the Cream and Crimson games. Just a fun kind of thing to get the guys out there and see, okay, we're actually on the field again, and what the team actually has coming this year.
Yeah, no, that's a nice synopsis there. I know a lot of IU fans are concerned or intrigued about the quarterback competition. It's down to 3 guys, seemingly, realistically. Peyton Ramsey, Mike Penix, who's coming off a knee injury, a serious one, and Jack Tuttle, the quarterback that you mentioned, a transfer who's coming in from Utah, who got immediate eligibility from the NCAA. He's available to play 4 years starting this fall. Can you maybe compare and contrast the three quarterbacks? And, this is a question our normal podcast host, Matt, had for us. Who do you think has the upper hand right now?
Great question. So I'm gonna give a little. I've been covering IU football since I could walk. So I mean, I've loved it since when it wasn't even on TV yet. Now Big Ten Network. Everybody can follow it now. But when you're in Indiana, you're watching Notre Dame because IU's not on TV. So the last 15 to 18 years, it's all I've watched. And Tom Allen. Let me start with Tom Allen with the football program. When he took over 2 years ago, we were recruiting a lot of mid-major guys. The last 2 years, we've had our best recruiting classes, we've ever had at IU. So Tom Allen's changing that aspect of it. There's a reason we have a really strong quarterback competition is because we've got really good quarterbacks, there. So when Allen took over, Wilson left him completely empty in the quarterback position for the last couple of years. LeGros came as a junior college transfer, played okay for the first year, then actually got beat out by Ramsey last year, 2 years ago. So, he was just kind of a stopgap. And then we had nobody. We didn't have anybody behind Ramsey really. We didn't have anybody really in front of him. So my almost sadness or feel bad for Peyton Ramsey was he got thrown in way too early. He wasn't ready when he had to play. So now our mindset on Peyton Ramsey is that he's not very good, or he's not as good as he needs to be to win in the Big Ten. But he was playing as a redshirt freshman and a sophomore. So that being said, he had every chance to win if he wins against Purdue last year and goes to a bowl game. If he wins, 7-8 games, he's the starting quarterback this year, probably hands down. He did not get that done. So now, there's a situation where he's going to be in a dogfight for his life to be able to save that spot. Now, Mike Penix comes in, and everybody, if you know anything about Mike Penix, he's got an arm that you just don't see. I mean, he can throw the ball anywhere at any time. He's athletic enough. He did some 7-on-7 at the spring game. He had an ACL tear last year, and he's kind of coming back from that. He's no contact right now, but he's got an NFL arm. There's no doubt. He's not a throw he can't make. So, we beat Florida State out for him, hometown guy. We pulled him out of Florida from Florida State. And then Jack Tuttle, he was number 8th ranked quarterback in the 2018 class. So we got two quarterbacks that are, big time quarterbacks that are both freshmen. So again, Tom Allen, he went and we had two pretty good quarterbacks. That's not good enough. He feels like that's not good enough. We got to bring in the number 8 quarterback in the nation in the 2018 class to compete with that. So I don't know who's going to win, but they're going to be really good in a couple of years. You're going to, even if you start with a true redshirt freshman this year, you're only going to build from this moment on. If I had to guess at this moment, I would say Michael Penix. I don't know how you beat him out with his arm abilities and what he can do and running the ball. Tuttle's got a great arm. I don't think he has the legs Penix does, and then Ramsey, I think, is going to be a really, really good backup quarterback. If something happens, or even like a couple plays for him, or a group of plays that he can come in and master and do those things. Because talking with some of the guys, they love Peyton Ramsey. They'll do anything for him. So he's earned their respect. So it's going to be a battle. And if you tell me any 3 win, it wouldn't surprise me. But if I had to put my money on it, Michael Penix.
That's interesting because Penix, who is a redshirt freshman, he only played in 3 games last year, and in college football, they recently instituted a rule where you can play up to 4 and retain your redshirt status. So Penix, who played in 3 games last year before suffering that horrible knee injury, completed 62% of his passes, was 21 of 34 for 219 yards. He threw a touchdown against Florida International. He didn't throw an interception. He also carried the ball 7 times for 45 yards. And on one of those 7 carries is where he got hurt. But I remember watching that game against Penn State, which took place in Bloomington, extremely windy conditions that day. IU kept it close. Penix really sparked the team, and that to me is what really stood out. It's not only that he's got a great arm. It seemed like it really he's the exciting guy out of the bunch. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think his ceiling is unbelievable. I mean, he's the there's only one way I can put it. For IU football to be where they want to be, they have to have an elite quarterback. And I mean, if they want to win 8-9 games, they have to have an elite quarterback in our league. There's just no doubt about it. You're going to be playing against, everybody knows who we play in the Eastern, side of the conference. So if you're average at quarterback, you're not going to win the games that you need to win. So I think Tom Allen understands that. He's got to have an elite guy back there. And I think Penix has the highest ceiling.
Yeah. And look, regardless of who the quarterback is, and let me know if you disagree. Let me know if you disagree, but I think the running backs and receivers group that IU's got coming into the season is really intriguing. You just look at the running backs. For one, you've got Stevie Scott and Samson James and Ronnie Walker. Scott was coming off a 1,000-yard season running the ball his freshman year, and then in the receivers group you've got Donovan Hale and Nick Westbrook, who are both fifth-year seniors. Ty Freifogel had a big touchdown catch in the spring game. Whop Fillier is electrifying out of the slot. And who knows who else will stand out. This backs and receivers group is going to help whoever the quarterback is.
Well, you're exactly right. The Cream and Crimson game, Donovan Hale is really the only guy that played that, is going to be a regular starter. So you talked about Westbrook, Donovan Hale, both, I'm going to mention Big Ten guys in their career. Whop might be the most exciting guy on the offense. Stevie Scott is a man. I don't know, when you watch him on, the game fit, watch him on TV or in the stands until you get down and buy him. The thing that impressed me the most about him is his vision and patience. He gets behind the lineman and then goes. He just doesn't. He's not a bad, a ram that just goes as fast as he can. He really looks for the openings. And then they bring in the second highest rated player ever, recruit ever, running back to come, with Samson James. So, they're, one of the big things that Tom Allen said over years is we have no depth. We compete at the first level and we have no depth to continue competing. We are to the point now. We have really, really, really good ones. And Miles Marshall, guys you're starting to hear about in the second group are now, Ty Freifogel, he's going to be a second group guy probably. I mean, with Nick Westbrook, Donovan Hale, and then with Kalen DeBoer with his 2 tight end system, I'll be interested to see, I wish you could have seen some more of those guys play because I'd really be interested to see how he's going to move all those parts and pieces. They even talked about a 2-back system with maybe Stevie Scott and Samson James. I mean, I'd really like to see some of that too. So we have more skills position depth in as good as it's been and as I've ever seen. So if we get a quarterback to make enough plays down the field, we're going to be hard to stop. And we have 7 good linemen. I mean, if you really pay attention, we have 5, and Matthew Bedford has been unbelievable. He's left to right. He took over for Coy Cronk at left tackle during the scrimmage game, but I watched him in practice. That's a perfect example. I know we were talking about depth. Mm-hmm. 4 years ago, Coy Cronk came onto campus and started at left tackle day 1 and has kept that position ever since. He comes on campus right now. I don't think he starts day 1. Not taking anything away from Coy Cronk. I think he's a great player. But Matthew Bedford and Coy Cronk, I don't know which one would be better as a freshman. And Coy was forced to play as a freshman, and he's probably going to redshirt if we can make that happen. So, just getting better recruits and more depth.
Yes,
really.
Yeah, that's exciting. Defensively, obviously, new coordinator Kane Womack has pieces to work with. Tom Allen obviously brings the defense-first mindset to IU football. Not that he doesn't focus on all. I mean, he balances that very well, but Allen is coming in with the defensive pedigree. Anything stand out to you from the spring game or from the spring practices on the defensive side of the football?
Yeah, they're legit. Our defense they're legit. I don't know how else to say it. We're fast and we're big and we're strong and the depth is ridiculous. I mean, if you start talking just the safety position, Juwan Burgess and Fitzgerald, Juwan Burgess decommitted from USC to come play for IU. Fitzgerald, they say he's the next, next big player for IU. And, you're probably 2 starting safeties, but Monster Matthews, Devin Matthews, they couldn't keep him off the field during spring practice. He was taking Burgess' spot. So I don't know who will start there. And Alfred Bryant was the starter last year. So, I mean, you got 4 legitimate starters at your safety positions. Same thing with, corners. I always love to say this, have you ever heard of Andre Brown?
Yeah, he's the corner, right?
Yeah. Well, me and you and about 7 other people have ever heard of him. But you know what that tells me as a cornerback? He's really good because he started he started 36 games or something in his career. And I don't know, you never hear about him. That means he doesn't get picked on. There's no issues on. You really started studying him. He started playing a lot. You just never really paid much attention to him. Rashawn Fant, a couple of years ago, everybody knew his name. They threw at him some, but Andre Brown, you don't know him because no one picks on him. Raheem Lane, Sean Riggins, Jalen Williams, Reese Taylor's moved over there. Now we got to recruit. Taiwan Mullen came in. He's an All-American player. We got, 5 guys you could start day one and feel good about it. So, our back end, I'd say our back end's our strength. We got, I'd say 8, 9 guys that can flat out play at the Big Ten level. And was last year, I think it was Marcelino Ball gets hurt. They move Fields up, and then Dutra had to play. That was 2 years ago. And then Dutra had to play safety, and there was a big drop off from moving one guy. And this year, you're not going to have that. They're going to be switching and moving all the time. I mean, you can keep going. Our Husky position, Marcelino Ball. That's one of my daughters. My daughter, he was out. It's always fun to see the guys that come out and participate in that. With the little kids camp, he came out and threw the ball with them, and you see the human side of them. And she was like, my daughter's 5, and she was just like, "Oh, he's really strong, Dad." And I'm like, "Yeah, I wouldn't try to block him," but I think he's a NFL player. We got Marcelino Ball's an NFL type guy. He plays linebacker / DB. Cam Jones, they've talked about moving him everywhere because he's too good not to play. So that position, again, it's stacked. So our backside is, looks really, really strong.
Yeah, and you mentioned Marcelino Ball. That's a guy who he was a 17-year-old freshman, I believe. He was one of the youngest players on the team, and he was thrust into a starting position in his freshman year, and he still put up 75 tackles and a couple of interceptions on the board in year 1. So he's going to be stepping into his junior season this year, and you better believe he's going to tackle ball carriers and bring down the quarterback, kind of like how T. Gray Scales did a couple of years ago.
Yeah, he'll be everywhere, and he's gonna be fun to watch. IU football really needs to watch him for a couple because he's gonna be one you don't get. He kind of slipped to us. He was in the late signing period. He was one of the last guys to sign, and we're not going to get too many like him. He's going to be pretty special, I think.
I love it. Yeah, just as a quick primer on the 2019 football schedule coming up, IU's got a couple of winnable games to start things off. They play Ball State at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis on August 31st. That's a Saturday. And the home opener is the following week against Eastern Illinois at Memorial Stadium in Bloomington. But then week 3, the Buckeyes come calling. Ohio State, they've got a new quarterback this year. It looks like it'll be Justin Fields, the transfer from Georgia, as Dwayne Haskins moves on to the NFL. The Buckeyes come in September 14th into the Memorial Stadium. That should be a fun one. And then UConn, the Huskies, come to IU the following Saturday. The first true road game is at the end of the month, September 28th. That's at Michigan State. Then there's a bye week. So in those first 5 games, you've definitely got some winnable ones, but you're also facing Ohio State and Michigan State, which is just another testament to how tough the Big Ten East division is.
Yeah, they know what they got, and there's no hiding it. We got to be better. I mean, I think Tom Allen will be the first to tell you we're not good enough, and with his recruiting class the last couple of years, he's proven that. Nothing's safe. Stevie Scott. If you'd asked me what Stevie Scott was going to do last year at this time, I'd said nothing. He might transfer in 2 years because where's he going to play? You had Morgan Ellison, cool guest. I mean, I know you're talking about running backs. He was the starting running back for, Florida Atlantic game. If he doesn't tear his ACL, does Stevie Scott ever see the field? I mean, you just don't know. And it's Cole Guest, a guy that can rush for 600-700 yards. It's a battle. And I think that's where you need it to be, where guys come in and don't think, oh man, I'm going to play right away. I mean, it's going to be a dogfight to get playing time.
Just to maybe wrap up this football conversation, I don't want to put you on the spot here, Blake, but is it bowl game or bust in 2019 for Tom Allen's group? Or is there some middle ground to it?
This is the worst. To me, this will be the worst team you see in the next 5 to 6 years with IU football. I think, if you go, I could go down every starter and they're all young. I mean, we start so many freshmen and sophomores. Last year we played, we played 14 freshmen last year, and wow. I don't know if that'll happen, but if you got to play 14 freshmen, there's a problem with your depth, and hopefully that doesn't come. But, just thinking offensively, next year you have your quarterback back, you have your 2 running backs back, receivers will be a little bit different, but there's a lot of talent still coming. I think Tom Allen, I think IU football, if they don't make a bowl game, it'll be a disappointing year for sure. I think that they're to the point now they're good enough to make a bowl game. Before, I don't know if they had the talent to make a bowl game. They had to win some games they probably shouldn't win to make a bowl game. I think now they have the ability and are better than teams. But, even, like teams that they've beaten in the past, to make the bowl games for 2 years in a row, they beat Purdue. Now Purdue's a different animal than when Hazel's there. I mean, if Hazel's there the last 2 years, we're in bowl games next. We're still in bowl games in 2 years. So, but we understand that we got to win some games. We got to beat Michigan State, and we got to pull Penn State or Michigan or Ohio State. We got to stop being the doormat of, we got to move up, and I think that's the expectation. But another thing is too, our fans got to get behind them. You know what I mean? It's hard. When you go to a spring game, and there's a couple hundred people there. And, you go to Nebraska. So you think IU football, Nebraska football, even Northwestern, similar. I mean, if we go to Nebraska, I think we should be able to beat them. Their spring football game had 87,000 people there.
Oh,
if you're a recruit and you go where IU has 500 and Nebraska has 87,000, where are you going? So we got to at some point, and they got to win for that to happen. I understand, but at some point, IU's got to take football seriously, and it starts with the fans, I think. So,
yeah, no, that's a good point. And I tell you, I know there are football fans at IU. I mean, when I look at just tracking Twitter on IndianaHQ and seeing the general engagement of the fans, whether it's on college football Saturdays or NFL Sundays during the season, I see tons of people posting to the IUFB hashtag and congratulating Jordan Howard and Tevin Coleman on their NFL success. So without going too much on a rant here, I'm a little bit surprised there aren't more people that attend things like the spring game or the regular the in-season games themselves. But hey, like you said, Blake, Tom Allen said we got to get better. So maybe I don't know. Maybe it's a chicken and egg kind of thing. With the wins will come, additional fan engagement.
Yep.
So we do have a couple of questions in.
Okay.
They're kind of across the board here. And look, you can always send us questions, you guys, whether it's on our Twitter page at IndianaHQ or hit us up on Facebook or send us an email or, whatever. I mean, there are so many different ways. If something's bugging you, we're more than willing to help you out and answer your questions. But David on Twitter asked a football question.
Okay.
And he said that he felt like last year's red zone struggles running the ball were not from a lack of execution, but from bad play calling to run the ball out of, he says, the pistol formation on the goal line. Do you foresee us putting the QB under center and giving the running back like Stevie Scott a head of steam with a fullback or tight end blocking for him?
Oh, great question. Yeah, you'll see a lot of different stuff. One of my, before I was on football, on all the time, I watched Notre Dame, and they, whenever they got in the red zone, they'd be in, full T or whatever they'd be in. And then throughout the years, they've went to just the pistol set. But what you're going to see them too is in 2 tight end sets and creating more gaps. And when you create more gaps, you can pick and choose who you want to attack better. right. If you put three guys out wide, then you can't spread out the guys you don't want to go towards. So that'll help too. But yeah, I definitely think you'll see way more creative running styles and bring different people in. And, even just like what we talked about, Steven Scott is a fullback and using, Cole Guest or Samson James, anybody as the running back. Great question. Yeah. And that's frustrating for me too, or anybody, because the play action stuff, you can't run the ball if you can't pass the ball if there's no run threat. There's not enough room when you're in the red zone. There's not enough room for wide receivers to get open if there's not a run threat. So that's definitely something I think will change. Great question.
Yeah, no, and as a Bears fan, I can attest that I prefer touchdowns over field goals. Cody Parkey, watching him kick last year was a nightmare. So I like when my team's running backs and quarterbacks get into the end zone, get those 6 or 7 points, and just take the pressure off my shoulders, because my expectations and fandom is very important.
Well, that's why that's where Peyton Ramsey might make his living this year. Coming in and doing some of that, because he can throw the ball, short throws, and be able to be another run option. That might be where he comes in some.
That's interesting. Yeah, maybe like a goal line package where Ramsey comes in as the running sort of dual threat option. That's interesting. Yeah. One basketball question came in from Matt, who normally co-hosts this podcast, but he was unavailable tonight. Matt asks, who are the 2 players remaining that the IU basketball team will be looking at to fill the final 2 remaining scholarships with? So this is interesting because the 2 scholarships that he's referring to assumes that Romeo Langford keeps his name in the NBA draft. And I think that's a fair assumption at this point. Yeah. I think if he comes back, people would be shocked.
Yeah.
So with the 2 spots remaining, there are a lot of ways Archie Miller can go with this. He could recruit a high school player, and there are definitely some significant uncommitted players remaining in the 2019 high school class. He could go for another grad transfer, much like Joey Brunk, who's immediately eligible, or he could find a regular transfer, I guess, for lack of a better word, where a player comes in, sits out a year, looking just for a different program to play for, sits out a year, and then restarts his NCAA eligibility clock. A guy like Nick Zeisloft was like this, where he sat out a year after committing to IU basketball and then played 2. So to me, one guy that I'm looking at to fill out the roster, and I'm using that term, it's not like he's going to play less if he plays for IU basketball, is Trendon Watford. This is a high school player who is from the state of Alabama. If the last name sounds familiar, it's because it is. He's the brother of former IU player Christian Watford. Trendon Watford is a 5-star recruit. He's recruited by a bunch of schools right now, no question about it. I know LSU's on his radar, IU as well. There are some others, but Watford is a 2019 forward who, look, shooting is still on the wish list for IU basketball. And this is a guy who, look, if you remember Christian Watford, he obviously could shoot the basketball, but Trendon, he's getting recruited by LSU, Memphis, Auburn, IU. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. He postponed his decision date. It's supposed to happen in the coming days, but he said, I'm going to hold on for a little bit here. He's going to push the date back. I think part of it was due to the reinstatement of Will Wade as LSU's head basketball coach. So to me, Trendon Watford would be a great addition to the team. And then, I'm looking at the transfer list for another option. Maybe someone like Ray John Tucker, who's a grad transfer. He could definitely, catch some attention. He could definitely, knock down some jump shots if necessary. Another player that just hit the transfer list was Kerry Blackshear. He's a forward from Virginia Tech who really dominated this past season in the ACC. He'd be an interesting addition. And look, there are always, there are a number of guys that we mentioned on our podcast a couple of weeks ago who can join as a transfer and knock down some threes, which would be really helpful, without a doubt. In your mind, Blake, is there someone that you have specifically on your wish list that you would like to see IU add?
Yeah, Watford is who my wish list would be, but I don't think We know, right? I just don't think even the two that we'll get are we even know who they are right now. I think it'll be a later, either somebody transferring later or just somebody that we don't know that's in the mix with us yet. I mean, I don't know if you look at the transfer portal, there's hundreds of guys. And I think that, Archie Miller understands he's got to win now, and he's got to figure out to bring guys in that will give him the best chance to win now, because I don't know how many more years he, has without being on a real hot seat. So I think I don't see any of the guys that we're really talking about hot at right now that are going to come here. I think they'll all go their other ways, but I think we'll have some surprises.
No, that's a good way to say it, because look, there are so many developments that'll take place between now and sort of the start of next basketball season. You've got to think people are going to have NBA draft decisions to make. Remember, the evaluation process for that is just starting, so you're going to see a host of players return to school because there are way too many entrants right now compared to actual spots available in the NBA. And then, there might be another coaching change or two that takes place for programs across the NCAA. So, like you said, there's a lot that still needs to play out. There's one final question that just came in. It's a football question. It's pretty big picture here. So Rob asks, what impact will new offensive coordinator Kalen DeBoer have on the IU football team?
We got to score points to win. I think last couple of years we just tried to defensively be good enough to survive and pull out a victory. Kalen DeBoer is going to score points. And if our defense is as good as we think it's going to be, we're going to be hard to beat. Especially we're going to beat teams that we're supposed to beat by a lot more than we. It just seems like every game is hard. We don't blow anybody out. It's just Virginia last couple of years have been just down. Where you feel like you're 3 or 4 touchdowns better than them, but it's always a close game because we can't extend the lead or we can't stretch anything out. But I think we have that availability. And another thing is if we got behind last year or the year before, we couldn't come back. We didn't have explosive enough plays. We didn't have thinking outside the box type stuff. So we were just kind of dead in the water if we got down 2 touchdowns. I know Penn State, I think it was last year, we were down 21-0 right away, and you just turn the game off because we're not scoring 28 points. And I think that we need to, we got to get some of that Kevin Wilson, back that, hey, we can score 35 points if we need to, but Kalen DeBoer understands, hey, if we only need to score 28, we can milk the clock a little bit. We can bring a 2-back system in. We can do a lot of stuff to help out the defense. And I think that's one of the best hires Tom Allen's made with just watching Kalen DeBoer. I couldn't think more highly of him. He does a lot of great things and uses a lot of different pieces. So very, very good offensive mind.
Love it. Yeah. I love it. Thanks, Blake. That about wraps it up for our 84th show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We really appreciate your support. Noah will be back next Monday for another edition of the Hoosier Sound Off. A big thanks to our live audience for coming on and participating in the chat. Make sure to stay tuned through our updates on Twitter. Visit our website, IndianaHQ.com, and subscribe so you can get these episodes right to your phones. Send us your questions as the audience on if you have any, and we'll have them on our next episode. More importantly, if you enjoy our show, leave us a review on iTunes or Facebook. Tell a friend, family member, share our links. Your support is how we grow this podcast to reach more passionate IU fans such as yourselves. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we'll see you next time.